Back in 2008, when the Vagabond manga was still ongoing, Takehiko Inoue created an art exhibit at Ueno Royal Museum, which depicted the potential final moments of Vagabond's Miyamoto Musashi. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this is officially canon or not, but since Vagabond is currently on hiatus with no updates as to whether it'll be picked back up or not, this for now is as close to an official ending as we are going to get. Not to start this video off on the wrong foot, but after having read this multiple times, I really don't think it adds a whole lot to Musashi's character, as I think his development and even his resolution lie within the main story, with his climax and resolution residing in the farming arc. But that doesn't change the fact that this is still quite a beautiful chapter and very much worth discussion. If the farming arc is the core of the story, then the exhibition chapter is very much the cherry on the icing on the cake, if you will. Diving right in, we're introduced to a character named Fuki, who, if you noticed, is, I believe, the same kid who was listening intently to the stories told of Musashi by Madahachi back in the main story. I might be wrong about this, but regardless, Fuki immediately reminds me of a young Miyamoto Musashi. He's incredibly ambitious, thirsting for blood, and inspired by a tragic upbringing to become strong so he doesn't need to rely on anybody else. This is the same misconception of strength that we saw inside of Musashi. He too once believed that being a strong person meant not needing to rely on anybody else and being able to live entirely on your own. On top of this, they were both largely inspired to think the way they were based on their upbringings and their lack of parental support. The chapter then transitions into panels which depict an orb which floats in front of Musashi. This orb is plagued with thorns which are poking into it. The orb represents Musashi's soul, and the thorns represent the pain caused to Musashi by each life that he took during his vagabond days. We see this imagery depicted as well in the main story, back in the Wandering arc. This right here shows to us the consequences of Musashi's previous misconception of what it means to be strong. He took the lives of others to become stronger so he didn't need to rely on anybody else, but all it did in the end was cause him pain. The only ones who can remove them are the people whose lives he took, and they do so, one by one. Is this forgiveness? Because obviously these people are not here right now in the flesh to forgive Musashi for his actions. So maybe this is self-forgiveness. Regardless, Musashi follows this up by providing an answer to Fuki as it regards to the meaning of strength. Soft and warm. That is true strength. He follows this up by saying that those are merely words until you yourself live them. This to me is very reminiscent of one of my favorite Vagabond moments, which is when Musashi lays on the ground during the farming arc and says that he does not want to become strong, but to be strong. This lines up with this new definition of strength, which is warmth and softness, because that is not the type of strength that you set out to achieve, it's just something that you are. Musashi had to go on an incredibly brutal and difficult journey to learn all of this. It's a very simple idea, but Vagabond does a great job, in my opinion, of displaying the benefit of learning and growing through lived experience. Some things can only be learned through experience, and that experience is different for each person. But Musashi may not have needed to go on this brutal and difficult journey at all to learn about true strength, if he had experienced it from the very beginning. In fact, Takehiko Inoue tells us definitively that Musashi would not have. If he had experienced this right from the start, his ambition, his need to be better than others, his desire to prove himself, and the idea that he could only rely on himself and not on other people, would have been dropped completely.